Chapter 1798 Face Slapping, Act 3-3. Chapter 1798 Face Slapping, Act 3-3. I don't care about the lives of most people, but she's one of my own. It's not the same. Feng Wu stared at the white fairy and snorted. I can't protect everyone, nor do I want to. I just want to protect those around me. I want them to live carefree lives with a roof over their heads. In this world that values martial prowess above everything else, I just want them to live happy lives. Feng Wu stared at the white fairy. I can only protect so many people, and I only care for about 10 of them. Qiuling might be a maid with mediocre talent, but I want to protect her. She has a group of people she wants to protect. Is that it? The white fairy thought. The white fairy had thought that Feng Wu was the type who wanted to save the world, but she realized now that Feng Wu's world wasn't all that big. So she has someone she wants to protect. Seeing the serious look in Feng Wu's eyes, the white fairy was a little touched. The arrogant princess seemed to be reminded of something. With an impatient wave of her hand, she said, "Fine. Save her all you like. Stop nagging." Feng Wu smiled. She knew it. The white fairy was much kinder than she appeared to be. Since they were on the same side now, she had to reach an agreement with the white fairy. "Arg!" Qiuling screamed again. Feng Wu immediately returned to herself. The next second, she dashed off like a cheetah. Because she wasn't holding the fallen star sword, Feng Wu struck out with her fist. Rumble! Feng Wu aimed her fist at Zhuo Qingyu's head when she was still in the air. Zhuo Qingyu was trying to throttle Qiuling, and was completely focused on her. Her face twisted and her eyes were filled with hatred. "Feng Wu, you've humiliated me so many times. Since I can't kill you, I'll kill your maid for a start. Qiuling, you only have yourself to blame. Die!" Zhuo Qingyu tightened her grip around Qiuling's neck. Crack! Qiuling felt as if her bones were going to be crushed. The suffocating sensation made Qiuling's vision go dark. Death was approaching. Am I going to die? Qiuling smiled bitterly. She was only halfway through making Feng Wu a dress, and she didn't trust anyone else with the job. Filled with regret, Qiuling slowly closed her pretty eyes. Thump! In the moment before she passed out, someone struck at them. Her fists gave off a formidable power. It was a fatal power. It reminded one of an erupting volcano. And it smashed onto Zhuo Qingyu's head. Thump! The back of Zhuo Qingyu's head almost cracked open, and blood poured out. Time seemed to freeze. Jun Wuxia covered her mouth, fighting back her shriek. Baffled, Zhuo Qingyu let go of Qiuling, who then fell to the ground. Qiuling could finally breathe again. She coughed loudly and panted. Zhuo Qingyu slowly turned around, and stared at Feng Wu with an astonished look in her eyes. She touched the back of her head, and her hand was covered with sticky blood. Chapter 1799 Face Slapping, Act 3-4. Chapter 1799 Face Slapping, Act 3-4. Looking down at her hand, she saw the red, sticky liquid, and the smell slowly made her return to her senses. "You," Zhuo Qingyu stared at Feng Wu. "How dare you hit me?" No one had struck Zhuo Qingyu like this before, and she still hadn't recovered from the shock. However, Feng Wu ignored her completely. Qiuling was her top priority now. The teenage girl had taken very good care of her since she was little. "Miss." A smile appeared on Qiuling's pale face. "Miss, I'm so happy I can see you before I die." Feng Wu rolled her eyes at Qiuling. "Don't be silly. You're not going to die. I'll never let that happen. Weren't you such a tough girl a moment ago, refusing to say a single bad word about me?" Qiuling was very calm at first, but she became so aggrieved when Feng Wu showed up that she burst into tears. Miss, I was so scared." Feng Wu patted her head. There. We can talk about this later. Just watch while I get revenge for you." She then put Qiuling down and slowly rose to her feet. When she stood up, her mild demeanor disappeared, and she had a murderous, angry look in her eyes. Turning around, Feng Wu stared at Zhuo Qingyu with her cold eyes. Meanwhile, Zhuo Qingyu. She stared at her left hand while pressing her other hand to her wound. The wound on the back of her head was too big. No matter how hard she pressed, blood still poured out. When she wasn't looking, Jun Wuxia had moved behind her. From where she was standing, she could see Zhuo Qingyu's back. And she saw that the back of Zhuo Qingyu's clothes was soaked with blood. Red blood kept dripping down, tainting her clothes as well as the ground around her. Soon, a pool of blood accumulated at her feet, and it was spreading. No one could have that much blood to spare. Staring at Zhuo Qingyu's open wound, Jun Wuxia somehow felt uneasy. She had a very bad feeling. Before she knew it, she took a step back, and another one. As Jun Wuxia stepped back, Feng Wu stepped forward until she was in front of Zhuo Qingyu. "Feng Wu, you hit me. How dare you hit me?" Zhuo Qingyu was so infuriated that she glowered at Feng Wu. Feng Wu smiled a little and said, "Yes, I hit you. So what?" "You." Before Zhuo Qingyu could say another word, Feng Wu raised her arm, and there was something ferocious about the energy that came out of her hand. Thump! She slapped Zhuo Qingyu in the face. Ah! The force sent Zhuo Qingyu flying. There was a thump. She smashed into a column and bounced back. Her wound was torn open, and more blood poured out. "Yes, I hit you, and I'm going to kill you now." Feng Wu looked like a goddess of death. The intimidating power fell on Zhuo Qingyu. Chapter 1801 Face Slapping, Act 4-1. Chapter 1801. Face Slapping, Act 4-1. Feng Wu let go of Qiuling and stared at Jun Wuxia again. The look gave her the creeps. Her heart raced, and she felt as if she was being stared at by a giant beast. "Ah!" Jun Wuxia screamed and turned to run. She had never run so fast in her life. Feng Wu smirked. Before, because of her cultivation level and the Zhuo family, she had to put up with the two women. But she was now a level 7 spiritual elder. Both Jun Wuxia and Zhuo Qingyu weren't even level 1 spiritual elders. Feng Wu could kill them like killing chickens. Moreover, no one was around now, and this was the best time to kill a person. Zhuo Qingyu is dead. Jun Wuxia, it's your turn now. Feng Wu was about to run after Jun Wuxia. The white fairy suddenly alerted Feng Wu. "Run! The spiritual lords are coming this way." Spiritual lord? Feng Wu frowned. According to the white fairy, only a handful of spiritual lords had entered this place. "They're not your friends." Seeing that Feng Wu wouldn't move, the white fairy warned her again. However, her tone sounded much more urgent this time. If they weren't friends, they couldn't be Feng Sun or Xian Yi. The only ones left were the second prince, Zhuo Qingxian, or Ranmil. Feng Wu had a bad feeling. "Go!" The white fairy urged Feng Wu again. Feng Wu was reluctant to go. She was that close to killing Jun Wuxia. Jun Wuxia was a witness to Feng Wu killing Zhuo Qingyu. If she saw Zhuo Qingxian, she would definitely tell him. That could bring Feng Wu so much trouble. At that thought, Feng Wu picked up a stone from the ground. The stone was only as big as a pigeon's egg, but with Feng Wu's level 7 spiritual elder capability, when she threw the stone with all her strength, it created a frightening shockwave. The space twisted. It was as if the air itself was torn apart. The little stone flew at Jun Wuxia's head like a streak of lightning. "Go!" the white fairy shouted. Feng Wu didn't even stay behind to see if the stone had hit its target. Picking Qiuling up, she ran as fast as she could in the direction she came from. "Zhuo Qingxian! Help!" Seeing Zhuo Qingxian around the corner, Jun Wuxia cried out for help. Zhuo Qingxian had been keeping the second prince company the entire time. They were searching the area when they heard some noise, so they decided to take a look. But to their surprise, Jun Wuxia was in danger. Jun Wuxia and the second prince were both Empress Duga's children. The stone, Jun Wuxia, Zhuo Qingxian, and the second prince. When the four of them arrived at the same point, the second prince grabbed Jun Wuxia's hand and was about to pull her to his side, when there was a loud bang. Feng Wu's stone smashed into Jun Wuxia's head. Because of the second prince, the stone didn't kill Jun Wuxia. Whoosh! Jun Wuxia fell into the second prince's arms and passed out. The second prince paled. "Wuxia! Wuxia!" Chapter 1802 Face Slapping, Act 4-2. Chapter 1802. Face Slapping, Act 4-2. The second prince and Jun Wuxia were very close. Hence, he was infuriated to see Jun Wuxia like this. He couldn't believe that someone would try to kill the princess of the empire. I'll go after them. Putting down Jun Wuxia, Zhuo Qingxian dashed off after Feng Wu. Run! Faster! That Zhuo Qingxian will catch up with you in less than 10 seconds. The white fairy almost burst into a cold sweat. With a serious look in her eyes, Feng Wu remained silent as she ran at top speed. If he catches you, he's a spiritual lord, and there's no way you can defeat him, said the white fairy. He's going to seize Zhuo Qingyu's body. Feng Wu didn't lose her head, and her voice remained very calm. The white fairy was confused. Feng Wu added, Zhuo Qingxian and Zhuo Qingyu are siblings. I see. The white fairy now understood. That's why you left Zhuo Qingyu's body out in the open. You're trying to mess with his head. The white fairy glanced at Feng Wu. Even in a critical moment like this, she was calm enough to set a trap first. The fact that she was able to remain calm in such a desperate situation was worthy of respect. The white fairy remembered the way her father used to look at her in resignation and say, My dear daughter, if you can keep calm when you're cornered, I'll let you inherit the throne no matter what. The white fairy smiled bitterly and wondered if she really wasn't as smart as a mere spiritual elder girl. Meanwhile, Zhuo Qingxian. He looked up and saw a figure wearing dark red clothes disappear around a corner. He was confident that in another 3 seconds, he would be able to catch the person. At that critical moment, thump! Something heavy fell off the roof. Zhuo Qingxian immediately smacked the thing away. He smirked. If you think such a little trick can affect me. But he froze before he could finish the sentence. Because he saw the face of the body. Although his smack had mangled the body, her face was still recognizable. Qingyu? Qingyu. Seeing the face of the body that had just fallen to the ground, Zhuo Qingxian paled and froze on the spot. He ran up to the body, sat it up, and studied its face. It really was Zhuo Qingyu. He then put a finger under Zhuo Qingyu's nose and was dumbfounded. She was dead. He had just killed her own sister. No, it wasn't him. Zhuo Qingxian checked Zhuo Qingyu's body carefully and saw the bloody hole on the back of her head. She had died from blood loss. Who did it? Who did this? Who killed Qingyu? Holding Zhuo Qingyu's dead body, Zhuo Qingxian bellowed, his voice resounding in the empty hall. But the only reply he heard was his own echo. Meanwhile, the second prince had arrived with Jun Wuxia in his arms. The prince frowned when he saw Zhuo Qingyu's dead body. What happened? Zhuo Qingxian's face was covered with tears when he looked up, and his eyes were filled with rage. Someone killed Qingyu, my sister. Damn it. The second prince's face darkened as well. Because Jun Wuxia had been severely injured. The same person must have killed Zhuo Qingyu and injured my sister. After checking their wounds, the second prince reached a conclusion. That person killed Zhuo Qingyu first. The fact that they killed her with one strike means that the person is a very capable cultivator. Chapter 1803 Face Slapping Act 4-3. Chapter 1803 Face Slapping Act 4-3. The look on the second prince's face was very solemn when he said, That person spotted us when they wanted to kill my sister, so they bolted. Who was it? Who could it be? Zhuo Qingxian was so furious that he couldn't keep his head. In a short 6 months, he had lost both his brother Zhuo Qinglu and his sister Zhuo Qingyu. It was as if the Zhuo family was cursed. Not many people have entered this place. If the murderer is human, we can easily find out who it was. However, if she was killed by a ghost from the tombs, the second prince's face darkened. The culprit won't be that easy to find. Zhuo Qingxian clenched his fists. I have a feeling that the murderer isn't human. Looking down at Jun Wuxia, the second prince said, The only way to uncover the answer is to wake my sister up. Only she knows who the murderer was. The other possibility is that the culprit tried to kill Wuxia, because she can answer the question. If someone tried to kill her to silence her, then the murderer has to be human. Zhuo Qingxian's reason slowly came back. The second prince nodded. If the murderer is human, it will be very easy to find out who it was. Feng Wu ran very fast. No one is chasing you now, the white fairy told Feng Wu. Feng Wu hid in a secluded area, placed her right hand on the wall, and exhaled. Wiping away her sweat, she looked over her shoulder and saw that Zhuo Qingxian was indeed nowhere to be found. Finally, I'm safe, Feng Wu said happily. But she soon began to worry. I wonder if Jun Wuxiao is dead yet. The white fairy looked at Feng Wu in resignation. Feng Wu was confused. What? Do I have something on my face? The white fairy stared at Feng Wu. I just want to see if you've forgotten what danger is. Feng Wu said, Of course I haven't. The white fairy stared at Feng Wu in disbelief. You haven't? Tell me the truth. Aren't you afraid at all? Aren't you worried about their families after killing those 2 girls? Ahem. After thinking about it, Feng Wu was a little afraid now. Miss, Qiuling said guiltily. It was all because of me. No, it wasn't because of you. With or without you around, I would have to kill them both. Feng Wu patted Qiuling's head. They've been getting on my nerves for a very long time. Plus, they tried to kill my family this time. Humph. Feng Wu might let them live if they had targeted her. But they had tried to kill Qiuling today. Next time, it could be Xiaoqi or her mother. Feng Wu would never let that happen. Therefore, they had to die. The only thing I'm worried about is whether or not Jun Wuxiao is dead. Feng Wu scratched her head. Things would be a lot easier if she's dead. Even if they suspect me, they won't find any direct evidence. But if she lives, she'll be a witness. The white fairy said. What do you think? Feng Wu smiled bitterly. If those 2 spiritual lords hadn't shown up, with my strength and accuracy, Jun Wuxiao wouldn't stand a chance. But with their help, Jun Wuxiao might survive. The white fairy said. Feng Wu, your way of thinking is wrong. What? Feng Wu was confused. Staring at Feng Wu, the white fairy said solemnly. This is a world that values martial prowess above all else. Feng Wu nodded. Chapter 1804 Face Slapping, Act 4-4. Chapter 1804, Face Slapping, Act 4-4. If you're invincible, whether it's spiritual lords or influential families, you can kill anyone you want. Anyone who stands in your way, you can simply kill them. The fact that you're worried about all these means just one thing. You're too weak. Feng Wu had to admit that the white fairy had a point. It's not just you. Those around you are even weaker. The white fairy looked at Qiuling with a little frown. Her talent is alright, and she has an ultimate Yin body. Why is she so weak? Feng Wu cleared her throat. She only obtained that body less than 6 months ago. The white fairy said in amazement. Isn't one born with the ultimate Yin body? Can it be created? Patting her chest, Feng Wu said confidently. I'm a great doctor. I can create both the ultimate Yin body and the ultimate Yang body. Like hell I'm going to believe you. The white fairy only thought that Feng Wu was trying to lift the mood, so she didn't take her seriously. No matter how she obtained that ultimate Yin body, it's a fact that she has that body. It'd be a great waste if we don't make good use of it. My dear fairy, we're all ears, Feng Wu said humbly. You're asking the right person. I'm indeed the answer to your question, the white fairy said proudly. Have you forgotten who I am and what this place is? The white fairy was a ghost, and they were in the tombs. This was a place with ultimate Yin, and was perfect for the ultimate Yin body. Please instruct us, said Feng Wu. But the white fairy became quite reluctant this time. Why should I do that? Feng Wu said. You're the kindest fairy. The white fairy said. I'm not doing it if I can't get anything in return. You can stop begging me. Feng Wu said. But you're so pretty and smart. The white fairy glanced at Feng Wu. Praising me won't make any difference. Feng Wu said. Master Chu Tianxiao is the most handsome, talented, and intelligent man in the world and Feng Wu couldn't stop praising Chu Tianxiao. The white fairy listened with a smile on her face. Fine, fine. The white fairy rolled her eyes at Feng Wu. Don't you ever feel ashamed? That's because you have so many things I can sing praises about. I can't make things up, can I? That's beyond my ability. Plus, I'm the most honest person you can find. Feng Wu was great at reading people. And while the white fairy liked hearing good things about herself, She liked hearing good things about Chu Tianxiao even more. Turn right about 50 meters ahead and enter that room, said the white fairy. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. She and Qiuling ran in the direction the white fairy told them. Because Feng Wu and the white fairy had been communicating in their heads, Qiuling had no idea what was going on. Miss. As soon as Qiuling tried to speak, Feng Wu silenced her with a wave of her hand. Feng Wu said, "Follow me. Quickly." Qiuling nodded. Feng Wu followed the white fairy and turned as she was told. Sometimes they couldn't see any way forward, but the white fairy would tell them to press an invisible button on the wall. To Qiuling's surprise, a door would show up after that. About 5 minutes later. Chapter 1806 Face Slapping, Act 5-1. Chapter 1806, Face Slapping, Act 5-1. She's been trying to look after you, but before she knew it, she became your burden. Have you ever stopped and tried to imagine how much pressure she's under, and how guilty she must feel? Such guilt and pressure will become her strength. Do you want to see the same thing happen again? Are you going to keep her under your wing forever? With the speed of your advancement, you'll become a spiritual lord when you take the seed of the spirit source. The difference between the both of you will grow even bigger. It's not just her. The gap between you and those few you want to protect will only get wider. You keep moving forward, and they can only watch you from behind. If they don't improve themselves, they won't be able to do even that. One day, you'll be so far away that they can't even follow you. When that time comes, how are they supposed to face you? Feng Wu, if you want what's best for them, you have to stop planning everything for them. They have their own paths. They also want to get stronger. They want to catch up with you. The white fairy gave a very long speech, and each sentence was like a stick hitting Feng Wu over the head, reminding her of a lot of things. She finally realized a serious problem. She talked about protecting her family all the time, but if they themselves weren't strong enough, her protection would only bring them more danger. Turning around, Feng Wu told Qiuling the truth about the spring. Going inside the spring will be very painful, more painful than walking on knives or jumping into boiling oil, but it'll be very rewarding. The longer you can stay inside, the purer your ultimate yin body will become, and the more improvements you'll make. I'll neither encourage you nor force you. You'll have to decide for yourself if you want to go in or not. Feng Wu stared at Qiuling with the most serious look in her eyes. I'll do it. Qiuling spoke affirmatively after hearing Feng Wu's explanation. Feng Wu frowned. Remember, it'll be very painful. Miss, I know. The smile on Qiuling's pretty face was sincere and bright. I want to become stronger. I want to be able to catch up with you. I don't want to see the day when you're beyond my reach. Feng Wu stood there dazed. That was almost exactly what the white fairy had said. Qiuling was smiling when she said this, but there was something so serious and powerful about her smile, and she had never looked so strong. Feng Wu turned to look at the white fairy. The white fairy shrugged. She can't hear me, but you know I'm telling the truth, don't you? Feng Wu didn't reply. She turned to look at Qiuling and said in a serious tone, "You can give it a go first. Don't overextend yourself." Qiuling nodded, but she wasn't going to tell her mistress what she really thought. Seeing the ghosts that kept coming out of the spring, Feng Wu looked at the white fairy with a frown. The white fairy said grumpily, "Have you forgotten about your Ghost King seal? Stamp the 4 corners of the spring, and no ghosts will dare come close." Feng Wu did as she was told. Indeed, the ghosts all avoided them, and the spring was soon ghost-free. They all hid in the corners and didn't dare come any closer. "Miss, I'm going in." Qiuling gave Feng Wu a long look, as if she was ready to die. Feng Wu was pained by that look. She knew that once Qiuling stepped into the spring, some things would never be the same again. Chapter 1807 Face Slapping, Act 5-2. Chapter 1807, Face Slapping, Act 5-2. Feng Wu stared at the white fairy and asked, "Are you sure about this? There won't be any side effects?" The white fairy's eyes darted around. "Tell me the truth." Feng Wu stared at her. The white fairy stuttered. "Well, it's not completely without side effects. It's just that Well, I'll tell you the truth. The white fairy cleared her throat, and the look on her face became serious. As you know, her ultimate body is still that of a human, but once she goes into the spiritual spring and bathes in the water, she will have a genuine ultimate body. Feng Wu frowned and stared at the white fairy. And once she has such a body, it'll be very easy for her to become a half-ghost, said the white fairy. She won't be able to get married and have babies, but that's about it. Feng Wu. She wanted to smack the fairy. The white fairy glanced at Feng Wu. You can ask her yourself. I don't think she has ever wanted marriage or a child. All that girl ever thinks of is you. I've never seen such a loyal maid. Feng Wu took a deep breath. She stopped Qiuling just before the girl stepped into the spring. After she told Qiuling what the white fairy had just said, Qiuling chuckled. It's not a laughing matter. Feng Wu stared at her. Qiuling chuckled and said lightheartedly, Miss, do you remember that time I went missing for an entire night? It was when you were about 8 years old. Of course Feng Wu remembered. It was the first day she woke up after she lost her spiritual essence, and she thought that even Qiuling had given up on her. Qiuling smiled bitterly. Actually, Miss Feng Lu threw me into the ditch, and it took me a whole night to climb out. But my health was destroyed that night. Granny Zhao found me a doctor in private, and I overheard their conversation. The doctor said that the cold water had affected my health, and I would never be able to have children. Feng Wu was astonished. Why don't I know this? Qiuling chuckled. I've always kept my ailment a secret all these years. You did sense it once and checked my pulse, but I managed to distract you, and you didn't notice anything. Feng Wu asked, Why didn't you tell me this before? Qiuling smiled bitterly. Miss, you lost all your cultivation power at that time, and Miss Feng Lu's family was on the rise. I didn't want to bring you more trouble, so I kept it a secret. Feng Wu asked, Why are you telling me now then? Qiuling smiled. You're stronger now, Mississippi. If you can kill Miss Zhou Qingyu and Princess Jun Wuxia, I'm sure Miss Feng Lu won't be a problem for you. Feng Wu said, Sure. I'll leave Feng Lu to you. When you're strong enough, you can take care of her yourself. Qiuling said, That's a deal. By the way, Qiuling suddenly remembered something. Miss Chaoga is here as well. Feng Wu frowned. What are you talking about? Isn't Chaoga with Master Zhu? Qiuling said, Yes, Master Zhu is also here. Feng Wu was even more surprised. How did they come in? Why didn't I hear about this? And how did you get in here? I didn't see you outside. The white fairy smiled a little. It seems the Master Zhu you're talking about reached some sort of agreement with the other 2 ghost kings, and they opened a secret door for him. Right after the white fairy said that, Qiuling said, Master Zhu didn't come in through the front door. A side door was opened somewhere else for him. Chapter 1808 Face Slapping, Act 5-3. Chapter 1808, Face Slapping, Act 5-3. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Qiuling and the white fairy said the same thing. Master Zhu brought me and Miss Chaoga here. I heard him telling Sapphiro that to enter that door, he would need the blood of 2 virgins. Feng Wu nodded. Miss, I'm going in, said Qiuling. After that, with a splash, she jumped into the spring. As soon as she went in, she felt as if she was being devoured by fire. It was so painful that her mind went numb. She felt as if her body was being torn in half. Sweat rolled down her cheeks. Qiuling could feel blood seeping out through her pores. The tiny amount didn't change the color of the spring. But it was so painful. Qiuling felt as if she was going to turn into a mist of blood, and each second was more unbearable than the previous one. Seeing Qiuling's sweaty face, and how it was twisted with pain, Feng Wu could almost feel her pain. Qiuling's popping veins were throbbing. How painful it had to be. Feng Wu turned to look at the white fairy. The white fairy shrugged with a wry smile. I told you before, didn't I? It's more painful than walking on knives and swimming in boiling oil. Feng Wu clenched her fists. There was a moment that she wanted to lift Qiuling out of the spring. I won't do that if I were you, the white fairy said unhurriedly. If she can't take it and passes out, the ghosts will get her out of the spring when her life is in danger. Just then, rumble, Feng Wu then heard a distinctive sound. Her eyes lit up. It was the sound of a breakthrough. After the unbearable pain Xiaoling went through, in a matter of minutes, she rose from a level 9 spiritual master to a level 1 spiritual grandmaster. Ding! Level 2 spiritual grandmaster. Ding! Level 3 spiritual grandmaster. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. That speed is incredible. The white fairy nodded and said, "Let's go." Feng Wu nodded. After taking a final look at Xiaoling, she turned to leave. According to the white fairy, if Xiaoling's life was in danger, the ghosts would get her out of the spring. Feng Wu frowned when she stepped out of the room. What? The white fairy looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Feng Wu scratched her head. Somehow, I think I've forgotten something very important. The white fairy glanced at Feng Wu. What is it? Feng Wu patted her head. The idea keeps drifting in and out of my mind, but I just can't grasp it. The white fairy said grumpily. Stop trying to remember then. Feng Wu smiled bitterly. But I just feel that it's something very important, life-threateningly important. The white fairy didn't know what to say. Feng Wu searched her memory as she walked. Suddenly, she smacked her head and let out a cry. Baffled, the white fairy turned her head to look at Feng Wu. Feng Wu frowned. I know what it is. What is it? It's about Sapphiro and Master Ju. Oh God. I'm in trouble. The white fairy looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. Feng Wu smiled bitterly. Master Ju is in love with someone called Cat 9, whom I killed and impersonated, and Sapphiro knows that. Chapter 1809 Face Slapping, Act 5-4. Chapter 1809, Face Slapping, Act 5-4. The white fairy frowned and asked, which part does she know? Feng Wu wrinkled her nose and said, both. The white fairy said, that Princess What's-her-name is just a mediocre cultivator. Don't worry. Feng Wu was almost in tears. But that Master Ju is very likely the most capable person in this place. The white fairy didn't know what to say. Feng Wu didn't know what to say either. After some silence, the white fairy looked at Feng Wu in resignation and heaved a long sigh. There are only a handful of capable cultivators here. And they're somehow all your enemies? Kiddo, you don't have many friends, do you? Feng Wu smiled bitterly. I've realized that as well. The white fairy then beamed at her. Feng Wu looked at her in bewilderment. The fairy said proudly, why are you threatened by a few mere spiritual lords? Don't be so short-sighted. You need to look at the big picture. Feng Wu rolled her eyes again. To the white fairy, who used to be one of the top cultivators on this continent, spiritual lords were indeed nothing worth mentioning. But to Feng Wu, a level 7 spiritual elder, a spiritual lord could easily take her life. She wasn't capable enough to see the big picture yet. Crossing her hands behind her back, the white fairy raised her head and said proudly, I wouldn't bother to handle your enemies if they were of the same level as you. The fact that they're much more capable than you actually interests me. I'm going to help you get through this game. Feng Wu said, but when you're faced with absolute power, the white fairy snorted. So what? Have you forgotten whose home this place is? Kiddo, don't be afraid. We can handle them all. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. Let's go. The white fairy had been a happy onlooker before, but she was very motivated now. Feng Wu asked, where to? The white fairy said grumpily, to improve your capability, obviously. Do you know what your biggest problem is now? Feng Wu said, my dantian isn't solid, my cultivation level isn't stable, and I'm not strong enough physically. Crossing her hands behind her back, the white fairy looked like a real teacher. Good. You know yourself pretty well. Feng Wu didn't know what to say. The white fairy waved at her. Now come with me. Let's work on your dantian first. Feng Wu was curious and wondered what they could do to make her dantian more solid, but she didn't ask any questions. Along the way, they walked past one tomb after another, and the place reminded her of an imperial city. The hall where she had found Xiaoling was in the first tier. When she was running away from Zhuqingxian, the white fairy had led Feng Wu to the second tier. To enhance your dantian, the most important thing is, hey, have you heard of Dan crystals? The white fairy asked. Dan crystals? Are they the legendary crystals that can solidify one's dantian? I thought they were only a legend. Feng Wu's eyes sparkled. If Dan crystals did exist, they would be a great help in solidifying her dantian. The White Fairy said proudly. I don't know about other places, but we do have them here in the tombs. Feng Wu's eyes sparkled. Really? The White Fairy said grumpily. Of course. I stuffed the box of Dan crystals in the treasure hall myself, and I still remember where they are. Let's go take them out. Chapter 1810 Face Slapping, Act 5-5. Chapter 1810, Face Slapping Act 5-5. It had been years since the White Fairy had fought a battle. The thought of Feng Wu's powerful enemies greatly excited her. This place was much more spacious than Feng Wu had expected. Each tier was bigger than an imperial city in the outside world. That was how big this place was. In a hall in the second tier, the White Fairy led the way, turning here and there. Feng Wu looked up about 5 minutes later to find the two of them, standing outside a freestanding courtyard. The tablet above the entrance read, Treasure Hall. This building only has one level? Feng Wu asked curiously. The White Fairy showed Feng Wu in and boasted. Although the hall only has one level, and seems to be square in shape, there's actually more to it. It's quite interesting. Look around. You can only see empty square lattices, right? Feng Wu nodded. The White Fairy explained. But if you count carefully, you'll see that there are 88 lattices in total. Feng Wu counted in silence, and saw that she was correct. The White Fairy said proudly, They may seem empty, but all the good stuff is hidden behind them. Do you see the 2 dice on the table in the center? Feng Wu nodded. The White Fairy said, Pay a certain amount of spiritual stones, and you can throw the dice once. The number given by the dice will correspond to the lattice you can open. Some of the lattices are empty, and some contain useless things, but if you're lucky enough, you can find real treasure. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. What kind of treasure? The White Fairy said proudly. Normally, no one is allowed to go behind the shelves, but since you're so curious, I'll show you around. Feng Wu didn't see what the White Fairy did, but when she looked up, she saw that she was no longer where she had been a moment ago. The treasure hall was actually built as one square inside another. Right now, the two of them were standing in the space between the 2 squares. Feng Wu was able to see the things behind each empty lattice. If what the White Fairy said was true, a lot of the lattices should be empty. However, Feng Wu saw a short sword, and her eyes lit up when she moved closer to examine it. Purple Sun? This is a level 2 weapon. The second prince, a spiritual lord, also wielded a level 2 weapon. Although it's level 2, it's nothing compared with your fallen star sword. This one can't level up, said the White Fairy. But only a handful of weapons on this continent can do that. You're so lucky, said the White Fairy enviously. As capable as she was, the weapon she used back then couldn't level up either. That was how rare such a weapon was. Feng Wu chuckled. She had been appointed the Fallen Star Sword by her beautiful master, so of course it was spectacular. Hey, what's this? Feng Wu picked up a book with a blue cover. Purple Sun? Is this the sword used by Master Purple Sun back then? Feng Wu was well versed in all kinds of books, and one of them was Swordsman of All Ages, which recorded 10 of the most famous swords of all time. And here it was Purple Sunday. Chapter 1811 Face Slapping, Act 6-1. Chapter 1811, Face Slapping Act 6-1. The White Fairy nodded in satisfaction. Feng Wu said, If the sword is here, does it mean that Master Purple Sun is buried here? The White Fairy nodded. Of course, but he's long gone by now. You won't be able to meet him. Feng Wu said, The master was famous for his Purple Sun sword, and people went after his Purple Sun swordplay like a flock of ducks. When all the major sects joined hands to attack him, Master Purple Sun fought his way out with those swordplay skills. The White Fairy said, I didn't know that the guy was such a legend. Feng Wu said excitedly, Master Purple Sun was amazing. He was at least a spiritual king. But the White Fairy didn't seem impressed. Even a spiritual king wasn't special enough for her. Feng Wu said, Purple Sun is of the Yang property, and a cultivator with the fire attribute will find the skills quite efficient. She then turned to look at the white fairy. The white fairy glanced at Feng Wu and said, "No." Feng Wu frowned. "I haven't said anything yet. Why are you saying no already?" The white fairy rolled her eyes at Feng Wu. "It's written all over your face. Of course I know what you want to say. You want the sword and the swordplay, don't you?" Feng Wu nodded and asked with sparkling eyes, Can I? Can I?" The white fairy turned her down without hesitation. "No." Feng Wu tugged at the white fairy's sleeve. The white fairy rolled her eyes at Feng Wu. "Still no." Feng Wu said, "Sister, you're the prettiest fairy in the whole world." The white fairy looked up into the air. "You already have the fallen star sword. Although your fallen star swordplay only has 3 stances, they're already powerful enough. I can only begin to imagine how amazing the rest of the stances are. To tell you the truth, although the purple sun swordplay is a good set of skills, it doesn't have as much potential as what you already have." "Why?" "It's not for myself," Feng Wu said seriously. "I want to give it to my friend. He has the fire attribute and is a lively teenager. Purple sun will fit him perfectly. It's like he was born to study the purple sun swordplay. Purple sun belongs with him." The white fairy asked, "Who's your friend?" Feng Wu said happily, "His name is Feng Sun." The white fairy said, "It's the teenager in the yellow robe, isn't it?" Feng Wu nodded. The white fairy said, "Well, the purple sun swordplay will indeed suit him." Feng Wu was elated, but before she could go on, the white fairy gave her a cold glance. "But my answer is still no." "Why?" Feng Wu was a little annoyed. The white fairy said, "Who do you think designed this treasure hall?" Feng Wu looked up. "You." The white fairy raised her chin. "Who else? Those 2 dumb brothers?" Feng Wu's eyes twinkled. "So, you can give the things here away freely." The white fairy gave Feng Wu a "you idiot" look. Feng Wu asked gingerly, "What?" The white fairy said, "Do you think all the rules are just for show? Do you think I can do whatever I want? Do you think?" Chapter 1812 Face Slapping, Act 6-2. Chapter 1812 Face Slapping, Act 6-2. Wow! Feng Wu looked like she had just discovered a new world, and she cut the white fairy off. "You can't do whatever you want. I thought you could." That rendered the white fairy speechless. "It doesn't work like that. He has to be here." The white fairy stared at Feng Wu. "But he's not here, is he? If he were here and wanted to play the lucky draw, of course I can do that. How can I give him the sword and the swordplay when he's not even here? Use your head." The white fairy jabbed a finger in Feng Wu's head as she spoke. Feng Wu said, Fine, the white fairy was right. Since the treasures had already become rewards, it wouldn't be that easy to take them out. What a pity." Pressing her hands together, Feng Wu said, "Feng Sun, if you really are meant to have purple sun, come here now. The fairy will help you." The white fairy glanced at Feng Wu. The girl could be very smart at times, but why was she behaving like a little idiot now? How silly. If such random prayer worked, she had to be favored by the goddess of luck. However, at that moment, as Feng Wu went on, they heard footsteps coming in their direction. Feng Wu suddenly looked up. The white fairy looked up as well. They looked at each other, and both seemed surprised. Feng Wu said, "They're the footsteps of a man." The white fairy didn't know what to say. Feng Wu said, "By the sound of it, he's not that old. I think it's a teenager." The white fairy was speechless. There was an age limit to those who could enter this place. Of course it wasn't an old man. Feng Wu said, "I think there are 2 of them instead of just 1. The white fairy didn't know what to say. Feng Wu said, "Feng Sun and Xianyi are always together, so it's very likely that." Crack! 2 people walked in. Feng Wu's eyes popped when she saw who they were. The white fairy looked from the 2 newcomers to Feng Wu, and her face turned red from trying to muffle her laughter. Ha 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 ha. But she couldn't help but guffaw in the end. Feng Wu wanted to smack herself. Forget Feng Sun and Xianyi. They were the second prince and Zhuqingxian. There was a teenage girl on Zhuqingxian's back, who was none other than Jun Wuxia. Feng Wu wanted to hide, but the white fairy waved her hand and said amidst her laughter, "You don't have to do that. We're here, and they're out there. There's a shield between us and them. We can see them, but they can't see or hear us. Feng Wu let out a breath of relief when she heard that. Right after that, Zhuo Qingxian and the second prince sat down on the ground and started chatting. Zhuo Qingxian said, "Your Royal Highness, only a human could have hurt the princess with a stone, and there are only so many people in this place." Chapter 1813 Face Slapping Act 6-3. Chapter 1813 Face Slapping Act 6-3. The second prince quickly read the words on the wall as he listened to Zhuo Qingxian. "Yes," said the second prince, his face expressionless. Zhuo Qingxian said, "Two groups of people entered this place, those from the Zhenhua Empire and those from the Sino grassland. Of the Zhenhua Empire team, there's Feng Sun, Xianyi, Feng Wu." Zhuo Qingxian took out a pen and wrote down all the names he listed. Feng Wu frowned. Zhuo Qingxian said, "Most of them are on friendly terms with Qingyu and the princess, but..." Zhuo Qingxian then circled a few names. Xianyi, Feng Sun, Feng Wu, Duan Chaoga, and Qiuling. These are Qingyu and the princess's enemies. Of them, Duan Chaoga and Qiuling aren't capable enough, so we can cross them out. And we're left with Xianyi, Feng Sun, and Feng Wu. The look in Zhuo Qingxian's eyes was as sharp as a blade when he stared at Feng Wu's name. Feng Sun and Xianyi more or less know when to stop, but this Feng Wu, because His Royal Highness is a little fond of her, she thinks that she can do anything she wants. Therefore, the person who killed Qingyu and injured the princess has to be her, Feng Wu. The mention of Jun Linyuan seemed to wipe the calm from the second prince's face. "Do you have any proof?" He stared at Zhuo Qingxian. Zhuo Qingxian said proudly, "Your Highness, we don't need any proof. Feng Wu has to be the murderer." The second prince stared at Zhuo Qingxian. Zhuo Qingxian wouldn't look away. "I saw it, and that's the proof." Behind the shelves, Feng Wu clenched her fists in rage, and her face went scarlet red. "That's Zhuo Qingxian. Yes, she did kill Zhuo Qingyu, but these people couldn't prove it. Yet, they were already going to convict her without a shred of evidence. If they couldn't find any, they would forge it. They had determined that they would make her a murderer." Feng Wu smirked. Luckily, she really had killed Zhuo Qingyu. Otherwise, her head would probably explode. The white fairy gave Feng Wu a sympathetic look. "Kiddo, do you have any friends at all?" Feng Wu snorted. The white fairy chuckled and took pleasure in Feng Wu's predicament. "Back then, a lot of people were jealous of me and found me an eyesore, but it wasn't to this extent. I do feel sorry for you." Feng Wu rolled her eyes. "There's no need." In order to mislead people in the future, Feng Wu took out the spiritual fossil stone that could record images, set it up, and started recording. The second prince and Zhuo Qingxian had no idea that Feng Wu was watching them from the other side, let alone recording them. Just then the second prince smiled. "Zhuo Qingxian, I see that your family hasn't given up on trying to kill Feng Wu." Zhuo Qingxian had always been on friendly terms with the second prince, so he immediately replied, "Yes." The second prince gave him a half-smile. "Why is that?" Zhuo Qingxian didn't answer. The prince asked, "Because of Zhuo Qingwan, isn't it?" Zhuo Qingxian pursed his lips. The prince glanced at Zhuo Qingxian and said indifferently, "Your family wants to marry Zhuo Qingwan to Jun Linyuan, don't you? That's been your plan all along, right?" Zhuo Qingxian said, "Your Highness." The second prince waved his hand and smirked. Chapter 1815 Face Slapping, Act 6-5. Chapter 1815 Face Slapping Act 6-5. 10 times. The idea made Zhuo Qingxian shudder. That girl was only 8 years old, but she had 10 times more talent, and had suppressed her cultivation level. Only after that was she on the same level as Qingwan. How could Qingwan be her match? The second prince's eyes flickered. "Are you sure about that?" Zhuo Qingxian smiled bitterly. "Our elder wouldn't lie to us. Moreover, the Zhuo family were the last people who wanted to accept that reality, but it didn't change the fact that it was the truth. Feng Wu was meant to be the chosen one." The second prince drew in his breath. Zhuo Qingxian said, "What could the Zhuo family do? Could we just let Feng Wu grow up? Once she gained her full strength, what would become of Qingwan? The two genius girls of the imperial capital? In a year or two, Qingwan would fall behind and become a joke. Her and our entire family. The second prince was speechless. Holding the spiritual fossil stone, Feng Wu recorded every single word Zhuo Qingxian said. Luckily, she had the stone with her. This could get very interesting in the future. Zhuo Qingxian had no idea that his words were being recorded, nor did it occur to him that the hall had a second layer. He wiped away his sweat. Since we're on the subject, there's nothing to hide anymore. Back then, the master of Firmament Palace came down the mountain and saw Feng Wu. She thought that Feng Wu's true phoenix blood was the most suitable for studying soaring phoenix swordplay. Hence, she wanted to take Feng Wu in as her last disciple. That's Firmament Palace, the largest sect in the Zhenhua Empire. If Feng Wu got that chance, what would happen to the Zhuo family? What about Qingwan? The master came down the mountain because the elder of our family invited her. She met Qingwan first and was satisfied with her. She was going to take in Qingwan. But she changed her mind after she saw Feng Wu. She didn't even respect her friendship with our elder. She said that had it not been for Feng Wu, who was a better candidate, she would have chosen Qingwan. But when the best was available, why should she go for something less ideal? Zhuo Qingxian clenched his fists and blue veins popped on his forehead. Your Highness, do you know what was the most frustrating part? Zhuo Qingxian clenched his jaw. The second prince asked curiously, what? The most frustrating part was that the master of Firmament Palace went to see Feng Wu in person and asked Feng Wu if she wanted to go back to Firmament Palace with her and become her last disciple. Do you know what that means? The last disciple is usually the master's favorite disciple, and it also means that all her senior brothers and sisters will be her patrons. But Feng Wu was only an 8-year-old girl, and she said no right away. She threw away that great opportunity just like that. No one should waste such a precious opportunity like that. Isn't she abominable? Zhuo Qingxian clenched his fists. Yes, you are. The white fairy grinned at Feng Wu. Zhuo Qingwan really had every reason to hate you. Feng Wu snorted. The white fairy said, but I had no idea that you were so talented. Even that old woman from Firmament Palace wanted you. Chapter 1816 Face Slapping, Act 7-1. Chapter 1816. Face Slapping, Act 7-1. Feng Wu snorted. The white fairy said, the old woman is quite a capable cultivator. I fought her once back in the day. Feng Wu looked up at the white fairy. The white fairy said, why won't you believe me? Feng Wu said, I just don't. She's the master of Firmament Palace, the largest sect in the empire. How can you beat her? Gosh, just because I'm nice to you doesn't mean that I'm not powerful. How can you be so wrong? The former princess said proudly. Guess what? I fought my way into Firmament Palace once. Do you know how annoying that old woman is? She wanted to take Chu Tianxiao away from me. Tianxiao is mine. How dare she? That was just preposterous. And do you know what the funniest thing is? That old hag calls herself the Sacred Lady. Bah, she's anything but sacred. Feng Wu chuckled. I was so mad. So, I charged into Firmament Palace and fought Qiu Yuehua, said the white fairy. Who's Qiu Yuehua? Asked Feng Wu. She's the head of Firmament Palace. I grabbed her hair and kicked her in the face. That was so satisfying. The white fairy said happily as she rested her hands on her waist. Feng Wu said, brag all you want, but I'm not going to believe a word. The white fairy didn't like the sound of that. Hey, why won't you believe me? It's the truth. Feng Wu said, so, are you saying that the old master of Firmament Palace is on the same level as you? The white fairy stressed, I'm a little more capable than her. The white fairy waved her hands as she spoke. She then glanced at Feng Wu and said, to be frank, if you had become Qiu Yuehua's disciple, you would be a spiritual lord now. Why did you turn her down? Feng Wu said seriously, I already have one master, and he's the only master I'll ever have. The white fairy asked curiously, who's your master? What has he done to be worthy of such respect? Feng Wu said proudly, he's my beautiful master. Seeing how pleased Feng Wu was, the white fairy didn't know what to say. How beautiful can he be? Is he as good-looking as my Chu Tianxiao? Feng Wu said proudly. Of course. Unconvinced, the white fairy smirked. Is he as capable as Chu Tianxiao then? Feng Wu found the question very silly. Of course the answer was yes. Her beautiful master used to be the most capable cultivator on this continent. He used to rule this continent, okay? The white fairy was even less convinced by Feng Wu's nod. Is he as talented as Chu Tianxiao? Can he write poems? How about seal cutting, drawing, chanting? And Feng Wu nodded at every single question. Yes, of course he could. Chu Tianxiao was good. But the beautiful master was the one who had taught him everything. Therefore Feng Wu nodded proudly. But the white fairy wouldn't believe a word. I'd die first before I believe you, Feng Wu said. But you're already dead. The white fairy raised a hand to hit Feng Wu. But Feng Wu dodged in time. She said as she ran. It's true. You'll see one day. My beautiful master is the most capable man in the world. No one is his match. The white fairy smirked. Chapter 1817 Face Slapping, Act 7-2. Chapter 1817. Face Slapping, Act 7-2. She wanted to mock Feng Wu, but Feng Wu silenced her with a wave of her hand. Shh. I hear footsteps. Someone's coming. The white fairy threw a dirty look at Feng Wu for the abrupt change in subject. But Feng Wu was telling the truth, because footsteps were indeed coming their way. Judging by the sound, they couldn't be very capable. And she was right. Quite a few people entered the hall, and they were all familiar faces. There was Feng Lu, Feng Sang, and Feng Yuran, the Feng siblings, together with Dugu Yamo and Dugu Mingxi. Because Feng Lu and Dugu Mingxi were a couple, Dugu Yamo had been accompanying them. Hence, she had been able to avoid Feng Wu's attack. Dugu Yamo immediately saw the second prince and Zhuo Qingxian, who were sitting by the wall. She walked over to greet them, but halfway there, she spotted Jun Wuxia, who was lying motionlessly on the ground. Princess! Dugu Yamo was astonished. She quickly walked over to Jun Wuxia, crouched down, and asked nervously, What happened? What's wrong with the princess? Is she injured? Zhuo Qingxian's face was colder than a winter morning. Where's Zhuo Qingyu? Wasn't she with the princess? The princess is injured. Where is she? Dugu Yamo asked anxiously. Zhuo Qingxian's terrifying eyes shone coldly. The look made Dugu Yamo shudder, and her knees buckled. Brother Zhuo, you look so scary. Zhuo Qingxian's eyes were filled with anger and sorrow. Qingyu is gone. What? What do you mean? Dugu Yamo had a bad feeling. The second prince said directly, Zhuo Qingyu is dead. Those words shocked the newcomers. Zhuo Qingyu is dead. Dugu Yamo stared at the prince. How's that possible? I don't believe it. How can Zhuo Qingyu be dead? Brother Zhuo Qingyu. Zhuo Qingxian nodded. Oh my God! Dugu Yamo fell back on the ground, covered her mouth with both hands, and opened her eyes wide. A hush fell over the room. Feng Lu cried out. Who did this? Who killed Sister Qingyu? Was it one of the ghosts? Zhuo Qingxian stared at her with a terrifying look in his eyes. No, the murderer was human. The look in his eyes was so terrifying that Feng Lu thought that her heart was going to stop. Her stomach lurched, and she had a very bad feeling. Feng Lu asked, Human? Who would? Zhuo Qingxian rose to his feet and started walking toward Feng Lu. Feng Lu looked terrified. She stumbled back as her face drained of all color. Fear gradually overwhelmed her. She stared at Zhuo Qingxian in terror. What are you doing? Zhuo Qingxian glared at her. Do you really have no idea who did it? Feng Lu asked. Who? Zhuo Qingxian said coldly. It was Feng Wu. The newcomers all cried out. Feng Lu looked horrified. Feng Wu. It was her. Behind the shelves Feng Wu smiled. Zhuo Qingxian had made that claim without a shred of evidence. Feng Lu said, Are you sure? Do you have proof? Instead of answering the question, Zhuo Qingxian raised a hand. Chapter 1818 Face Slapping, Act 7-3. Chapter 1818. Face Slapping, Act 7-3. Zhuo Qingxian raised a hand. Arg! Feng Lu cried out. The next second, Zhuo Qingxian's fingers were around her thin, fair neck. Feng Lu was pushed against the wall and lifted off the ground. Young Master Zhuo. Both Feng Yiran and Feng Sang were astonished. To Zhuo Qingxian, they were no more than two petty ants. He couldn't be bothered to look at them, let alone show them respect. Feng Lu was the first to react. Young Master Zhuo, am I incriminated because I'm related to Feng Wu? I'm innocent. Feng Lu yelled loudly. Although Feng Wu is my cousin, everyone knows how much we hate each other. We didn't get along when we were little, and we can't stand each other now. We try to set each other up all the time. She's not my family. She's an enemy. As she yelled, she felt Zhuo Qingxian's grip on her neck loosen a little. An idea suddenly hit Feng Lu. She yelled, "There's no love lost between Feng Wu and me. To tell you the truth, I've been jealous of her since we were very little. I'm jealous of her talent, her beauty, and how much my family values her." Feng Lu was willing to say anything to keep herself alive. Young Master Zhuo, please listen to me. She and I were born only months apart. Why was she treated like the star in the sky, while I was considered no more than a weed? I won't accept it. I'm so jealous. I wish she were dead. Zhuo Qingxian frowned and studied Feng Lu. He then let go of her and stepped back. But Feng Lu was too excited to stop talking. Therefore, when Feng Wu lost her cultivation ability and became a good-for-nothing, I was over the moon. I was so happy that I almost lost it. I really wanted to take that great opportunity and kill her. Unfortunately, Feng Wu was too smart. She fled to northern border city after things went south for her. And I couldn't be bothered to go all the way out there to kill her. Plus, I thought she would die there eventually. But Feng Wu was good. Not only did she survive in northern border city, she flourished. I wanted to kill her on the spot when I saw her again. Actually, that was what I tried to do. On our way back to the imperial capital, my brother and I kept trying to kill her. But she was just so lucky. Moreover, Feng Sun was helping her all the time, and our attempts were all rendered futile. Isn't that right, brother? Fearing that the others wouldn't believe her, Feng Lu turned to Feng Yiran for confirmation. Behind them in the hall's inner space, Feng Wu held the spiritual fossil stone and recorded every single move they took and everything they said. She wondered how much trouble this video would stir up when she released it to the public one day. Well, just how many enemies do you have? The white fairy glanced at Feng Wu and laughed at her. The look on Feng Wu's face remained as cold and indifferent as ever. Aren't you angry with all those who hate you? Don't you feel sad? The white fairy asked curiously. Angry? Sad? Feng Wu glanced at the white fairy with her calm eyes and told her, "You have too much imagination." Chapter 18-19 Face Slapping, Act 7-4. Chapter 18-19, Face Slapping, Act 7-4. After long years of being sealed up, the white fairy enjoyed talking a lot. I don't believe you. Take me as an example. If I hear someone talking about me behind my back, I'll be so angry and sad that I have to beat those people up, the white fairy said proudly. Feng Wu glanced at the white fairy. It's not worth it. The white fairy asked. Not worth it? Feng Wu nodded. I've drawn a circle. Inside in it are those I care about, and outside are those I don't. These people here are all outside the circle. The white fairy gave her a doubtful look. Looking into the distance, Feng Wu explained to the white fairy. I only care about who I want to care about, and only they can hurt me. As for the others, the white fairy looked at Feng Wu, finding her reply very strange. Feng Wu asked innocently, Don't you find getting angry so exhausting? The white fairy gave it some thought and nodded. It was true. Whenever she lost her temper before, she found the experience extremely draining. Feng Wu nodded. If that's the case, then who are they to affect my mood? Well, the white fairy scratched her head. Feng Wu seemed to have a point, but something still didn't feel right. Yet the white fairy didn't know how to retort back. Therefore, she only glanced at Feng Wu before turning back to watch the others. Meanwhile, it was Feng Yiran's turn to tell the story. Yes, on our way back to the imperial capital, we tried to kill Feng Wu a few times. We even trapped her with wolves once. But Feng Wu was so lucky, and after everything, she managed to survive. Feng Lu nodded repeatedly. That's right. We tried a few more times after we arrived at the imperial capital, and we tried to get Feng Wu kicked out of the Feng family. But luck always seemed to be on her side. No matter how hard we tried, she could always turn things around. She gave us such a difficult time that we almost didn't dare try anything else. Feng Yuran nodded. Feng Lu said, You won't believe what Feng Wu did. She gave up her dignity and tried to find herself a patron. Finally, she gained His Royal Highness's favor. Zhuo Qingxian's eyes lit up, and he gave Feng Lu a very cold glance. He asked, So, she really is involved with His Royal Highness? Feng Lu said, Of course she is. She climbed into His Royal Highness's bed and volunteered to become his bed-warming maid. And she was so smug about it. She has no idea what a laughingstock she's become. His Royal Highness doesn't have any feelings for her at all. If His Royal Highness really has no feelings for her, he wouldn't have pushed me away back then, De Guillermo said coldly. Feng Lu said, Well, fine, His Royal Highness does treat her differently and protects her a bit every now and then. But it all depends on what kind of mood he's in. Most of the time, His Royal Highness doesn't even like her. De Guillermo retorted again, You're not His Royal Highness. How can you be so sure? Feng Lu said, Well, do you think His Royal Highness likes Feng Wu very much? De Guillermo snorted. I don't know how much His Royal Highness likes Feng Wu, but I'm sure that if something happens to Feng Wu, His Royal Highness will take her side. Jun Linyuan had pushed De Guillermo away in front of everyone, which was why it had left such an impact on her. Chapter 1820 Beautiful Master 1. Chapter 1820 Beautiful Master 1. But everyone shook their heads. They didn't believe that Jun Linyuan could care so much for Feng Wu. The look in Zhuo Qingxian's eyes remained fierce. One couldn't see how furious he was, but the murderous look was still there. Feng Lu was very scared. She couldn't understand why Zhuo Qingxian still wouldn't say anything when she had already revealed the relationship between Feng Wu and the Crown Prince. What should she do now? Suddenly her eyes lit up. Feng Wu has a weakness. Feng Lu smacked her own thigh. Even if His Royal Highness will protect her, what about those she cares about? Will His Royal Highness protect them as well? Feng Wu suddenly had a bad feeling. Indeed, everyone gave Feng Lu curious looks. And she enjoyed the attention. Oh, Feng Wu has a weakness? The second prince glanced at Feng Lu. Was the prince curious as well? Feng Lu was even more pleased. She nodded and said, Yes, Feng Wu has a weakness that only I know. It's her family. Your clan. The second prince frowned. Feng Lu said, Not the entire clan. She hates my branch, the first branch of our clan, and she has never treated us as her family members. Feng Wu is very selfish. To her, her only family is the second branch of the clan. The second prince played with his fan. The second branch. Feng Lu said, That's right. The only people Feng Wu cares about are Feng Xiaoqi, her brother, and her beautiful mother. Feng Xiaoqi? Is he the one Grand Secretary Feng has been taking with him everywhere? The second prince frowned a little. Yes, Feng Lu snorted. He's the apple of Grand Secretary Feng's eye now. The second prince thought. To call Feng Xiaoqi the apple of his eye is an understatement. He's practically Grand Secretary Feng's life. Grand Secretary Feng wouldn't go anywhere without the boy. And even the second prince felt envious. The white fairy glanced at Feng Wu. I see that you've got an amazing brother. Feng Wu said, He has the ultimate young body, that's all. The white fairy wondered exactly how many geniuses there were in Feng Wu's family. Feng Lu smirked. But Feng Xiaoqi isn't who Feng Wu cares about the most. Her beautiful mother is her real taboo. To Feng Wu, her mother is sacrosanct. Mrs. Feng. The second prince slowly flapped his fan and smiled. I heard that Mrs. Feng used to be the most beautiful woman on this continent, but she has been living in seclusion and rarely comes out, so only a handful of people have actually met her. I've never met her myself. Is she really that beautiful? A malicious look flickered in Feng Lu's eyes. She nodded. Yes, she's very beautiful. If Feng Wu's looks are a 6 out of 10, Her mother will score 10 out of 10 at least. All the words in the world aren't enough to describe how beautiful she is. Is that so? The second prince said indifferently, and the others couldn't tell what was on his mind. But Feng Lu and Feng Yiran traded malicious smiles. No matter how well you're doing out there, you can't be sure that nothing will happen to your beautiful mother. Well, if something happens, don't blame us. She's just too beautiful to stay hidden, thought Feng Lu. Behind the shelves, Feng Wu clenched her fists and her face turned livid. Chapter 1821 Beautiful Master 2. Chapter 1821 Beautiful Master 2. Feng Lu Feng Yiran, I've forgiven you twice, but you still won't repent. Fine, thought Feng Lu. Kiddo. Seeing the look on Feng Wu's face, the white fairy reminded her. They're targeting your family now. Be careful. I know. The look in Feng Wu's eyes was like an icy blade, and she remained completely calm. Pass command of the treasure hall to me. Feng Wu stared at the white fairy. Normally, the white fairy would tease Feng Wu, but seeing that she was genuinely angry, the white fairy gave in and obediently handed Feng Wu a wooden plate about 30 centimeters long. Just then, they heard footsteps outside the hall. Feng Wu found the sound familiar. Looking up, she saw that it indeed belonged to her acquaintances. It was Feng Sun, Xian Yi, and the seventh prince. I heard you from all the way over there, talking about Feng Wu and her mother. What's that about? The seventh prince loved to see some action, so he was the first to run into the hall. The second prince frowned as soon as he saw the seventh prince. He had never liked his sweet-tempered brother. Although they had the same mother, the seventh prince had followed Jun Linyuan around since they were little. It's nothing. The second prince didn't want to elaborate. Feng Sun frowned and raised his guard. Feng Wu and her mother? Are you trying to do something to her mother? Feng Yiran, Feng Lu, Zhuqingxian, and the second prince all fell silent. The seventh prince wanted to press the issue. Take a look at your sister. The second prince glanced at him. My sister? My sister. The seventh prince paled when he saw Jun Wuxia. What happened? She suffered a severe head injury. The second prince was very succinct. The seventh prince clenched his fists. Who did this? Who injured my sister? The second prince said, Feng Wu probably. Feng Wu? Is she the one who thinks she has gained my brother's favor and has been causing trouble everywhere? How dare she hurt my sister? Who the hell does she think she is? How arrogant. The seventh prince was so angry that his face drained of all color. Feng Sun frowned. Why would Xiao Wu hurt Jun Wuxia? Your Royal Highness, did you see it yourself? Do you have any proof? All eyes were on the second prince. He then glanced at Zhuqingxian, instructing the latter to do the talking. Zhuqingxian said proudly, Feng Wu first killed my sister Zhuqingyu. She then tried to silence the princess by killing her. And your proof? Feng Sun and Xianyi moved closer, both staring at Zhuqingxian. Zhuqingxian didn't answer. Feng Sun smirked. Do you have any witnesses or physical evidence? If not, you're making things up. You just want to incriminate her with whatever crime you can think of. Xianyi didn't speak, but the murderous look in his eyes was enough to show what he was thinking. He gripped his sword tighter, ready to charge out at any time. Zhuqingxian said, Although I don't have any witnesses, I know she was the murderer. Shut up. Feng Sun charged at Zhuqingxian and slapped him in the face. Smack! The sound was very crisp. He moved as quickly as a streak of lightning, and was too fast for anyone to follow. Zhuqingxian said, You! He was ready to draw his sword. Dugu Yamo suddenly shrieked, I have proof. Chapter 1822, Beautiful Master 3. Chapter 1822, Beautiful Master 3. Immediately, all eyes were on Dugu Yamo. Taking a deep breath, Dugu Yamo said, I know that the princess and Zhuqingyu set up Feng Wu before, but Feng Wu found out and gave them a warning. She must have held a grudge against them since then. When she found the princess and Zhuqingyu all by themselves this time, she decided to kill them. That's the motive. That has to be the truth. Feng Sun smirked. Is that what you call evidence? Dugu Yamo asked. Doesn't it count? Feng Sun smirked before he slapped Duguyamo as well. Smack! He did it without hesitation. Rubbing her swollen cheek, Duguyamo glared at Feng Sun. You! If something happens to me later, you'll be responsible. Because I slapped you, and that gives you motive. Feng Sun looked around the room. The second prince stepped back involuntarily when he met Feng Sun's eyes. Feng Sun smiled maliciously. Feng Wu suddenly realized that when Feng Sun was enraged, he was no longer that light-hearted teenager. Instead, he became a relentless killer. The energy he gave off made the others shudder. Feng Wu nodded. Jun Linyuan had indeed given Feng Sun a lot of influence. At a critical moment like this, Feng Sun stepped up, and even the second prince had to give in. Thump! Feng Sun drew out the sword behind him, stuck it into the ground, and rested his hands on the hilt. He then smirked. That's all I'm going to say. Unless you show me evidence, otherwise, if you try to slander Xiao Wu again, I won't hesitate to use this sword. The crowd was speechless. Xianyi stood behind Feng Sun. Although he had remained silent the entire time, there was no doubt that he would support Feng Sun no matter what. Feng Sun had said what he wanted to say. Immediately, everyone fell silent. The white fairy glanced at Feng Wu. I thought you had no friends at all, but these two men have your back. Feng Wu nodded and said in a serious voice, They're my friends. The white fairy said, They're in that circle of yours. Feng Wu nodded. She would have hesitated to say yes before today, but when Feng Sun and Xian Yi supported her against all odds. They supported her unconditionally, without knowing that she was in the same room with them. Feng Wu now considered them her true friends. Since they're your friends, I'll tell you something. The white fairy was on the same level as Master Teacher Si Baisi, so she could recognize problems that other people couldn't. She said, That talkative boy. Feng Wu said, He's Feng Sun. The white fairy nodded. That little Feng Sun is quite talented. All he's lacking now is a sword and technique that suit him. Feng Wu nodded. The white fairy pointed at lattice number 66. The purple sun sword is in that lattice. At this stage, that's the sword that suits him best. If he can get that sword and refine it, his fighting capability will improve greatly. Feng Wu's eyes lit up. The white fairy said, Do you see lattice number 88? That's the purple sun sword play. It goes with the sword. Chapter 1823, Beautiful Master 4. Chapter 1823, Beautiful Master 4. If he can get both of them and practice the swordplay with the Purple Sun sword, once he reaches perfection, even Master Purple Sun himself, or the 9 major clans put together won't be able to defeat him. Feng Wu's eyes flickered. Needless to say, she was determined to get the items in both lattices. She then asked, What about Xian Yi? Dear fairy, which sword and technique do you think will suit him? The white fairy rolled her eyes at Feng Wu. Dear fairy. Feng Wu tugged at her sleeve. Everyone should get a piece of the pie. If Feng Sun gets his share, but Xian Yi doesn't, he'll be very upset. Although he won't say it, I know he will. The white fairy snapped, Fine, fine. I know you won't stop nagging until I give you what you want. Feng Wu grinned. The white fairy pointed at lattices number 25 and number 35. The blowing snow sword, and its corresponding swordplay will suit him very well. They were still discussing it, when they heard footsteps approaching again. Feng Wu's pupils contracted when she saw who they were. They would bring trouble. Master Ju. Princess Ranmil. Zhuo Qingxian narrowed his eyes when he saw the newcomers. They were none other than Master Ju and Princess Ranmil, 2 spiritual lords, followed by Sapphiro. Right now, all 7 spiritual lords had arrived at this place. That was how important the treasures here were. Master Ju nodded at Zhuo Qingxian, before turning to read the instructions on the wall. After reading them through, he turned to Ranmil and said, Roll the 9-faced die on the round table together, and the highest number you can get is 88. The number you get will correspond to the number on the lattice. Ranmil nodded. Master Ju then said, There are 88 treasures in this hall, and the most precious pieces are the purple sun sword, the blowing snow sword, and their corresponding sword plays. Ranmil nodded. I've heard of them before. Master Ju nodded. Then, there's the turtle diagram, the glowing cloud stroll, the martial elixir, the immunity talisman, and so on. Our trip to this place won't be for nothing if you can get any one of those treasures. Ranmil nodded. Sapphiro listened greedily. I'll roll first. Sapphiro wanted to walk up to the table. No. Duguyamo shook her head. Why? We were here first. Sapphiro said. Because I'm the princess. Duguyamo said. You're the princess of the grassland, not the Jumwu Empire. We don't have to follow your orders. Sapphiro said. You. Master Ju frowned, looked around the room, and snorted. We need to form some sort of order. Otherwise, no one can roll the die. The second prince flapped his fan. In that case, the first to arrive should roll first. Sapphiro didn't like the idea, because she had come last. But Ranmil nodded. That sounds fair. We'll do that. Ranmil had thought that the second prince would suggest that they should be ranked by social status, and his suggestion impressed her a little. Chapter 1824 Beautiful Master 5. Chapter 1824 Beautiful Master 5. The second prince waved his fan and smiled at Ranmil. Ranmil didn't know what to say. Because everyone was eager to roll the dice, they soon formed a line. The second prince was the first in line. Zhuqingxian, Duguyamo, Dugumingxi Feng Lu Feng Sang Feng Yuran, Feng Sun, Xianyi Master Ju, Ranmil and Sapphiro lined up behind him in that order. There were 12 of them in total. Based on the rules, one needs to pay a price to play the lucky draw. It can be in the form of spirit stones, part of one's lifespan, or spiritual essence. Because the second prince was here for the first time, Zhuqingxian explained to him, spirit stones are too expensive. Rolling the dice once will cost you 10,000 low-grade spirit stones, a year of your life, or 10% of your spiritual essence. The spiritual essence can be recovered, but the other two can't. So most people will choose to pay the fee with their spiritual essence, Zhuqingxian reminded the second prince. Fengwu glanced at the white fairy. The white fairy hemmed and hawed. Fengwu asked, So, is there something you need to tell me? The white fairy hemmed and hawed. Fengwu asked, Where does the spiritual essence go? The white fairy said, Do you remember the two other ghost kings? It goes to them. Fengwu nodded and looked quite sorry. Can we grab it halfway? The white fairy said, Even if you can, it'll be useless to you. Humans can't absorb it. Only spiritual pets or sword spirits can, but your sword spirit is already absorbing some right now. Before the white fairy could go on, Fengwu raised her hand, and Little Phoenix appeared on her shoulder. Little Phoenix? The white fairy cried out. Is that really Little Phoenix? Fengwu looked at the white fairy suspiciously. Have you met the bird before? The white fairy studied Little Phoenix carefully before she shook her head. No, it's not that bird. That bird was a grumpy big shot. It would tear me to pieces if I dared to stare at it like this. Fengwu asked why. The white fairy was carried away by her memories. In the end, she heaved a long sigh and said, That bird used to be the flying spiritual pet of a very, very important person. He wasn't just your regular big shot. He was the most capable man on this continent. Do you know what it looks like to tear the sky open with a sword? That big shot. No, calling him a big shot is an insult to him. He was an immortal. No, I can't say his name. It'll be defiling him. Fengwu said, I think you're talking about. She didn't get to finish the sentence. The white fairy cut her off with a wave of her hand. The look on her face was a mixture of fear and reverence. Her eyes glowed, as if she was reminded of an unreachable deity. No, I can't talk about him. The white fairy changed the subject. This is definitely not the Little Phoenix I knew. You want to keep the spiritual essence? Well, it's doable. The white fairy walked away, waved her hand, and a pipe appeared, which linked the hall to where they were. There was a smug look on her face. If your bird can pierce through this pipe, it'll be able to take the spiritual essence. Unfortunately, she said in a sorry tone, unfortunately, that bird will never be able to do that. Chapter 1825, Rejoice Too Soon 1. Chapter 1825, Rejoice Too Soon 1. Little Phoenix hissed at the white fairy, looking very fierce. But the white fairy only chuckled and rubbed the bird's fluffy head. Little Phoenix made a protesting sound, but there was nothing else it could do. Ha ha ha, the white fairy laughed. The big shot bird back then was very tough. You're tough too, but you're not even a fraction of the bird I knew from back then. That bird used to pick on me all the time, but there was nothing I could do about it. You, on the other hand, will be at my mercy. The white fairy went on rubbing Little Phoenix's head as she spoke. Little Phoenix stomped its foot in frustration, but it was nowhere near as capable as the white fairy. Therefore, hissing was about the only thing it could do. Its beak was sharp, but it couldn't hurt the white fairy at all. Little Phoenix was astonished. Seeing how angry Little Phoenix was, Feng Wu immediately changed the subject. The second prince is starting to inject his spiritual essence. Little Phoenix immediately stared at the pipe. And she was right. When the second prince touched the pipe with his right hand, spiritual essence slowly flowed toward them along the pipe, made from unknown material. When it flowed past Little Phoenix, it struck down at the pipe with its seemingly harmless feet. Its sharp talons then buried into the pipe. Thud! All 8 talons dug into the pipe. The white fairy cried out in surprise. What? She gave Little Phoenix a strange look, because she had been convinced that Little Phoenix was going to fail, and was ready to laugh at it. She said, the pipe is made from een iron. Without a een attribute soul, one can never puncture the pipe. The white fairy was the king of ghosts, which was why she could puncture the pipe. She had just been waiting for Feng Wu to beg her. But it had never occurred to her. How many secrets do you have? The white fairy tried to pick up Little Phoenix to take a closer look. But, whoosh, Little Phoenix shot an intimidating glance at her. The white fairy's stomach lurched, and she felt a cold sensation go down her spine and run through her limbs. How did this happen? The white fairy couldn't believe it. She used to be the most powerful person on this continent. How could this little bird? For a moment, she sensed something intimidating and awe-inspiring from the bird. She drew back her hand, and didn't dare offend the bird that was a mere spiritual elder. Little Phoenix ignored the white fairy, and started absorbing the spiritual essence through its talons. The second prince had no idea what was going on. After he had injected enough spiritual essence, ding! A beep rang out in the treasure hall. The 2 dice rolled off the table, and stopped by the second prince's feet. The second prince picked up the dice, and put them in a lidded cup. Whoosh! He started shaking the cup. 3 seconds later, he stopped and opened the lid. The others soon saw the numbers on the 2 dice. The big one was 5, and the small one was 3. 53. Zhuo Qingxian clenched his fists. I hope there's something good in box number 53. Fighting back his excitement, the second prince walked up to the lattice with the number 53 written on it. 3 seconds later. Chapter 1826, Rejoice Too Soon 2. Chapter 1826, Rejoice Too Soon 2. Crack. The door to lattice number 53 slowly opened. A low-level female ghost floated out of the box. If she were human, she would weigh at least 100 kilograms. Not to mention that she looked hideous. Even as a ghost, she was quite clumsy. When she finally inched over to the second prince, she bent her knees and gave him a bow. Master! The chubby female ghost winked at the second prince as she bowed. The second prince's face stiffened. Zhuo Qingxian was speechless. Feng Sun couldn't hold back his laughter anymore, and he cracked up. Ha 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 ha, my stomach, ha 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 ha. I'm going to have a cramp, ha 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 ha. The second prince wanted to smack Feng Sun on the head. But the chubby female ghost didn't seem to notice her master's attitude at all. When the second prince moved a little away from her, she would inch toward him again. Master, don't you want me anymore? The second prince's face stiffened. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Feng Sun laughed so hard that he pounded his fists on the ground. The second prince stared at Feng Sun. Shut up. Feng Sun went on laughing. The second prince was speechless. Zhuo Qingxian had to summon up his courage to placate the second prince. Your Royal Highness, this ghost can be useful. The second prince stared at Zhuqiangxian. Zhuqiangxian immediately changed his argument. Of course, this low-level ghost is completely useless. She's quite ugly, but we can still use her to scout the way. She won't be able to follow us out of this place anyway. Your Royal Highness, please bear with her for a couple of days. The second prince was speechless. One could easily tell how displeased the second prince was. Your turn. He stared at Zhuqiangxian. When Zhuqiangxian injected his spiritual essence, Little Phoenix immediately stole it away, and Zhuqiangxian had no idea where his spiritual essence went. Soon he saw the result. 4 and 5. Let me see what's in lattice number 45. Can it be the purple sun sword? Zhuqiangxian opened the door as he muttered to himself. Whoosh! Right now, all eyes were on lattice number 45. When the door opened, thump! A giant ball of fire rolled out of it. Zhuqiangxian barely had enough time to dodge, and fear drained his face of all color. Whoosh! But before he could let out a breath of relief, the fireball turned around and charged at him again. The fireball would follow no one but Zhuqiangxian, as if it held some grudge against him. It followed Zhuqiangxian everywhere. Although it was being consumed during the process, shrinking and becoming weaker, it was enough to give Zhuqiangxian a very difficult time. When the giant fireball finally wore out, Zhuqiangxian was finally able to stop running to catch his breath. The crowd was speechless. If a capable spiritual lord had to run for his life like that, what would happen to us? Flustered, Feng Lu was afraid to roll the dice. Feng Yuran comforted her. It says on the wall that there are only 3 such fireballs in total, and only the most unlucky will get them. There are over 80 possibilities here. I don't believe that you'll get one. After some thought, Feng Lu realized that after Zhuqiangxian rolled the dice, the possibility of her getting one was down to 1/43. Chapter 1827 Untitled. Chapter 1827, Untitled. All right, I'll roll the dice. Feng Lu then stepped forward. She prayed in her head when she rolled the dice. Please be good. Please give me something good. When she opened the lid, 6 and 6. Feng Lu was excited when she saw the 2 numbers, and she clenched her fists in satisfaction. It's a great number. I'm sure you'll get something good. Feng Sang was happy for Feng Lu. However, when she opened the door to lattice number 66, she saw a small dim yellow spiritual stone. Everyone was speechless. Feng Lu wouldn't believe it. She ran up to the shelf and grabbed the stone. But the low-grade spiritual stone was still a spiritual stone. It didn't change to something else as Feng Lu had hoped. Dugu Yamo asked, is it really a low-grade spiritual stone? Sapphiro looked disappointed. We've rolled the dice 3 times, and nothing good has come out yet. Is there no treasure in this treasure hall? The others looked suspicious as well. Could Sapphiro be right? Was the entire treasure hall a scam? Otherwise, why have none of us found anything good? Meanwhile, in a place where they couldn't see, Feng Wu was smiling. In fact, 66 was indeed a good number, because that box contained something very valuable. The purple sun sword. But the white fairy had passed command of the treasure hall to Feng Wu, and Feng Wu would never let Feng Lu take the purple sun sword. That was reserved for Feng Sun. Feng Sang stepped forward. Let me give it a go. All eyes were on Feng Sang now. She injected her spiritual essence, which once again was absorbed by Little Phoenix without fail. Ding! When the dice stopped rolling, everyone's eyes lit up. Number 2. The numbers on the 2 dice were 0 and 2, hence number 2. Lattice number 2. Feng Sang quickly walked up to the lattice with that number on it. She took a deep breath to calm herself down. It's probably still worthless, she thought to herself. If she couldn't get anything good, she didn't want other people to find anything valuable either. But that wasn't what other people thought. They wanted Feng Sang to give them some hope. They would be very disappointed if they found 4 worthless pieces in a row. Feng Wu checked lattice number 2. She was in a spot where she could see what was in the lattice without letting other people see her. Number 2. She took a look and shook her head. It was an advancement elixir, one that could raise a cultivator by a level instantly. Feng Sang wasn't as annoying as Feng Lu, so Feng Wu decided to give it to her. Squeak. The door opened. Wow! Feng Sang almost jumped to her feet when she saw what was inside. She couldn't hide the excitement on her face. An advancement elixir? Is it really an advancement elixir? Am I seeing things? Although she had given away 10% of her spiritual essence, she could recover it later. Compared with the elixir, it was a very small price to pay. The others looked at her as well. An advancement elixir? I can't believe this. That's such a bargain. Chapter 1828. What's going on? Chapter 1828. What's going on? We didn't find anything good probably, because luck just wasn't on our side. More good stuff will come. Don't worry. Can this advancement elixir be fake? Feng Lu and Sapphiro asked in unison. Feng Sang ignored that question. She was worried about potential accidents if she held the elixir for too long, so she sat down by the wall and started cultivating. Rumble. She made a breakthrough in less than a minute. OMG. Nearly everyone cried out in surprise. Making breakthroughs was usually a very difficult task. If anything went wrong, the practitioner could lose their mind. But with the help of the advancement elixir, Feng Sang made such fast progress. What a pity. That amazing advancement elixir was wasted on a spiritual grandmaster. I'm sure there are more to come, as long as I'm lucky enough. I have faith in my luck. Everyone was filled with confidence. However, when it was Feng Yuran's turn, he found a ghost in his lattice. Everyone was disappointed. Zhou Qingxian said, "Is the system of the treasure hall doing this on purpose? It'll only give us something good after several bad ones. It's Feng Sun and Xian Yi's turns next. They won't find anything." The others all nodded. But Feng Wu smiled. Of course she wouldn't let that happen. Ding! Feng Sun rolled the dice. 7 and 4. The others shook their heads when they saw the numbers. Duguyamo said, 74 doesn't sound very lucky at all. Sapphiro said, it's an ominous number. Ha ha ha. The others burst out laughing. Feng Sun looked around the crowd, his face livid. Everywhere he turned he saw sneers. Feng Sun snorted, you can laugh all you want. I may find the purple sun sword on the first go. Ha ha ha. The others laughed even louder. The purple sun sword used to belong to Master Purple Sun, and he used it to fight his way out when he was surrounded by tens of thousands of enemies. The purple sun sword is one of the best treasures here, and only the blowing snow sword is its match. I'd like to see you find it on your first attempt. Now open the door. Feng Sun was a little frustrated by all the mockery. He had only said it in passing, and had no idea what he would find. The purple sun sword. He probably had to use up the remaining luck of his life to get it in this lucky draw. Standing in front of the lattice, Feng Sun pressed his hands together and prayed wholeheartedly. Xiaowu, you're always the lucky one. How about you lend me some of your luck? Sure. Feng Wu smiled on the other side. Unfortunately, Feng Sun couldn't see or hear her. After saying the prayer, he opened the door to the lattice. Feng Sun closed his eyes, too nervous to see what was inside. However, at that moment, those behind him all drew in their breaths. Oh my God! What? Feng Sun, you? That's impossible. Feng Sun's stomach lurched when he heard the noise. What the heck? Why did they all look like they had seen a ghost? Feng Sun then opened his eyes. He was astonished when he saw what was inside. Chapter 1829. Feng Wu the Secret Operator 1. Chapter 1829. Feng Wu the Secret Operator 1. Oh my God! Feng Sun looked from the item in the lattice to the crowd, and he almost choked. Isn't this? Fearing that the others might want to take it from him, Feng Sun immediately picked up the sword. Gosh, that really is the purple sun sword. That's right. It's the real thing. Feng Sun cried out. Those behind him were as shocked as he was. It can't be. Why is he so lucky? 74 doesn't sound lucky at all. Well, it seems that we're the unlucky ones. The crowd was speechless. When Feng Sun finally recovered from his astonishment, his reaction was, "Ha ha ha, ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. It's the purple sun sword. It really is. I'm so lucky." Everyone looked at Feng Sun as if he had lost his mind. Sapphiro couldn't help but ask, "Hey Feng Sun, how did you find the purple sun sword?" Everyone else looked curiously at him as well. Feng Sun feigned a hesitant voice. "Do you really want to know?" Duguyamo said, "My dear young lord, just tell us. We all want to know. Please tell us." Feng Sun said, "It's very easy actually. Just pray in your head, and ask Feng Wu to help you. That was what I did." Ask Feng Wu for help? Sapphiro and Duguyamo traded angry looks. "I'll never ask for her help, even if I find nothing," Sapphiro snorted. Duguyamo thought the same. Feng Sun shrugged. "Fine, whatever." Xianyi was next. Before he rolled the dice, Feng Sun shouted at him, Xianyi, remember to pray to Feng Wu. It really works. Maybe you'll find the blowing snow sword." Xianyi rolled his eyes and found Feng Sun ridiculous. He injected the spiritual essence and rolled the dice. Feng Sun was concerned. "If you won't ask Xiao Wu for help, I will. Xiao Wu, please help Xianyi find the blowing snow sword. It'll suit him perfectly. Please." Sapphiro rolled her eyes at Feng Sun, finding him rather idiotic. The others were speechless as well. However, when Xianyi opened the door, wow! Everyone drew in their breaths. They saw a meter-long sword that was completely white. Oh my god! This isn't happening. How can this be? Is this really happening? That's impossible. That's too big a coincidence. Everyone was astonished and couldn't stop making surprised sounds. Xianyi was equally surprised. It took him 3 seconds to finally recover from the shock. He then turned around and stared at Feng Sun. Feng Sun was equally quiet. Because what was in that lattice was none other than the blowing snow sword itself. Xianyi took it out and held it with both hands. The meter-long sword was a snowy white color, and the blade gave off a chilly air. The sword suited him perfectly. Chapter 1830, Feng Wu the Secret Operator 2. Chapter 1830, Feng Wu the Secret Operator 2. It looked as if the sword had been built just for him. Despite his great joy, the look on his face remained unchanged, and one couldn't tell how he felt. However, his trembling fingers on the hilt of the sword illustrated how excited he was. When Xianyi walked up to Feng Sun with the sword, Feng Sun grabbed the blowing snow sword and sighed in amazement. "This is such a great sword." The others were all speechless. Of course the blowing snow sword was a great sword. But Feng Sun and Xianyi were both unbelievably lucky. According to the list on the wall, both swords were the most precious treasures in this hall. There were 8 5-star treasures here, and they had found 2 in such a short time. Feng Sun glanced at Xianyi and looked pleased. "What did I tell you? Pray to Feng Wu, and you'll find anything you want. If I hadn't prayed for you, you would never have rolled the number for the blowing snow sword." The others rolled their eyes at Feng Sun, since they all believed that it was thanks to Xianyi's own luck. Feng Sun said confidently, "Just wait and see. We'll find the purple sun swordplay and blowing snow swordplay later. It'll be perfect." Xianyi only shook his head with a wry smile, because he didn't believe it. He wasn't the only one. The others shook their heads as well, thinking that Feng Sun was imagining things. "Forget it. You already used up all your luck when you found the swords. You can't possibly find the swordplays as well." Feng Sun stopped bragging. "If you can find those 2 things, I'll kneel at your feet." Dugamingshi smirked. "Well, if you say so, I'll mark that down." Dugamingshi smirked. "You don't own this place. I don't believe that you can find them as well." Crossing his arms, Feng Sun sounded very pleased. "Sure, I don't own this place, but maybe Xiao Wu does." PHHH. The others all laughed. Behind the shelves, the white fairy watched as Feng Wu cheated for Feng Sun and Xianyi, and heard Feng Sun praying to Feng Wu until the 2 of them found the swords. She then turned to Feng Wu with a smile. "That silly boy is quite funny. I guess all silly boys are like that." Feng Wu rolled her eyes again. The white fairy poked Feng Wu's arm with a finger and said, "Do you think other people will pray to you for your help?" Feng Wu said, "Apart from Feng Sun and Xian Yi, everyone here holds some kind of grudge against me. It's just a matter of how much they hate me. They'll never ask for my help." The white fairy said, "You never know. Just wait and see." Back in the treasure hall, Ranmil was next to roll the dice. She had skin as white as milk, and she was as elegant as a snow lotus. The people of the grassland had great respect for her, and she had left quite a good first impression on Feng Sun. Therefore Feng Sun reminded her, "Your Highness, I should remind you. If you want a particular treasure, you should ask for Feng Wu's help." Ranmil looked over her shoulder and smiled at Feng Sun, but she didn't ask for Feng Wu's help. Feng Sun frowned. "You won't find anything like this." Chapter 1831. Pray to Feng Wu 1. Chapter 1831. Pray to Feng Wu 1. Sapphiro gave Feng Sun a "you idiot" look. "Hey, can you shut up for a moment? What do you mean by that? Why can't we find anything good if we don't pray to Feng Wu? Do you think this place belongs to her?" Feng Sun said, "I have a feeling that that's really the case." "Idiot." Sapphiro couldn't be bothered to talk to Feng Sun. Behind the shelves. Wait. When Ranmil injected her spiritual essence, Little Phoenix's eyes lit up when it stole it. Feng Wu was bewildered. Little Phoenix was fascinated. The spiritual essence is so pure. It feels so familiar, like an angel coming down from the sacred temple. What? Feng Wu looked at Little Phoenix in bewilderment. Sacred temple? Angel? What are they? She had never heard those terms before. Did I say those words? Little Phoenix looked confused. Feng Wu didn't know what to say either. She asked the white fairy, "It did say that, right?" Meanwhile, the white fairy looked at Little Phoenix in a strange way, and seemed to be lost in her thoughts. Feng Wu didn't want to disturb her. On the other side of the shelves, Ranmil rolled the dice after she injected the spiritual essence. She seemed very confident in her actions. Sapphiro told Feng Sun in a satisfied tone, "Don't worry. My sister has always been a lucky person. She's a blessed girl. Therefore, she'll definitely find the best treasure here. Don't worry." Ranmil herself believed it as well. That was because what she didn't tell the others was that she had a keen and innate sense for treasures. Therefore, Ranmil was very confident in herself. She could control the dice and could roll the best numbers. 8 and 8. Ranmil stared at lattice number 88 and smiled. She knew she was going to find something very nice. She slowly walked up to lattice number 88. At the same time, Feng Wu looked at reward number 88. Ranmil was indeed the blessed girl. She hit the jackpot on her first go, and that lattice was none other than the purple sun swordplay that Feng Sun wanted. Feng Sun would cry his eyes out if Ranmil took the swordplay. Therefore, Feng Wu walked up to the shelf, removed the boards at the back of the lattice, and switched the items of lattices 87 and 88. When she saw what was in number 87, she chuckled and said sorry to Ranmil in her head. Squeak. Ranmil opened the door with utter confidence. Splash. A giant ball of water flew out and charged at Ranmil. It was so close and fast, and the explosion was larger than anyone could imagine. Ranmil spread out her arms and moved back as fast as she could. Even with her capability, a few drops of water still got her. "Sister, are you all right?" Sapphiro rushed over and took Ranmil's hand. Ranmil frowned and couldn't believe what had happened. Sister? Sister? Sapphiro was worried that her sister was injured. Chapter 1832. Pray to Feng Wu 2. Chapter 1832. Pray to Feng Wu 2. Why is this happening? Ranmil stared at lattice number 88 in confusion. No, that's not supposed to happen. Ranmil couldn't understand why this would happen. She had never doubted her instinct, and had a hunch that there was something nice in lattice number 88. She believed it, but as it turned out, she wondered if something had gone wrong with her instinct. If that was the case, she would be in a lot of trouble. Sister? Sister? Sapphiro was concerned. I'm all right. Don't worry. Ranmil waved her hands, and color came back to her pale face. Sapphiro said, You didn't find any treasure, big deal. You've always been the lucky one. Just wait until you roll the dice next time. Ranmil nodded. She didn't want to speak, because she needed some time to figure out what had gone wrong. Feng Sun muttered, I told you already. You need to pray to Xiao Wu and say good things about her, but you just won't listen. Do you see what happened? And the crowd was speechless. Master Zhu glanced at Feng Sun and smirked. Really? I'm not going to ask for Feng Wu's help. I'd like to see what I can get. As it turned out, with Feng Wu behind the scenes, even if Master Zhu rolled a good number, Feng Wu would change it to something else. Therefore, when he opened the door, Feng Sun guffawed. Ha 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 ha. A low-grade spiritual stone? Master Zhu, didn't you say that you were a lucky man? Why did you find a low-grade spiritual stone only? Ha 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 ha. Master Zhu's face was livid. In fact, he desperately wanted to find the purple sun swordplay. He had hit a bottleneck in his cultivation, and the purple sun swordplay was the only thing that could inspire him. However, it was so difficult to find that swordplay. Master Zhu glanced at Ranmil. Master Zhu knew what Ranmil was capable of, so he had reached an agreement with Ranmil. She would find the purple sun swordplay for him, and he would introduce her to Master Teacher Si Baisi. Ranmil gave him a nod, confident that she would find it on her next draw. Their gazes met for only a second, and everyone else missed it. But Feng Wu could see everything that was going on, and noticed the look they exchanged. I see that Ranmil isn't as indifferent as she appears to be. Feng Wu rubbed her chin, and narrowed her eyes. Sapphiro wasn't a threat, because she had used up all her cards. But Ranmil here struck Feng Wu as someone very dangerous, because she was too mysterious and too good at wearing a mask. After Master Zhu, it was Sapphiro's turn. Feng Sun still reminded her. Hey princess, I mean it. Pray to Xiao Wu, and you'll probably find something nice. Sapphiro rolled her eyes. Feng Sun stopped dreaming already. After that, she marched toward the table and rolled the dice. When she opened her lattice, she found that it was empty. There was nothing inside. Sapphiro was so angry that she wanted to cut her hands off. Feng Sun laughed at her. Resting his hands on his waist, he guffawed. Ha 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 ha. What did I tell you? You can't find anything nice if you don't pray to Xiao Wu. Chapter 1833, A Difficult Choice. Chapter 1833, A Difficult Choice. Sapphiro was so angry that her face twisted. She threw a dirty look at Feng Sun. Feng Sun said happily, What did I tell you? Sapphiro snorted. Now that all the 12 people had rolled the dice, apart from the 2 swords Feng Sun and Xianyi found, no one else had found anything valuable. The new round started. Needless to say, the second prince was the first to roll the dice. Feng Sun teased him. Your Highness, why don't you try praying to Feng Wu? The second prince didn't actually hold a lot of grudges against Feng Wu, so he smiled and said, Do you think so? Since you've made it sound so miraculous, I'll give it a go. The white fairy smiled at Feng Wu. So, shall we give him a reward? Feng Wu hesitated. Of these people, apart from Feng Sun and Xianyi, if she had to choose another person to give a reward to, the second prince would be the next candidate. Give him a level 3 item, Feng Wu said grumpily. When the second prince opened the lattice, a semi-sacred reinforcing pill, it was difficult to tell if the second prince was happy or disappointed. Compared with the others, that pill was a good reward. But compared with what Feng Sun and Xianyi received, the pill was nothing. Well, it's better than nothing. Taking the pill, the second prince was ready to go back to his friends. That's because you weren't sincere enough, Feng Sun said with a smile. It's the same as praying to Buddha for help. Your prayer will only be answered if you're sincere. Otherwise, why should Buddha or God help you? The second prince said. Why do you say that I wasn't sincere? Feng Sun asked. You were? The second prince said. Of course. Feng Sun gave him a meaningful smile. So you were very sincere, but I'm confused. When I came in just then, didn't you accuse Xiao Wu of killing Zhuqingyu? and trying to kill Princess June Wuxia. And you said that she told you so before she passed out. If she really did, then, Your Royal Highness, are you that cold-blooded that you would pray to an enemy and ignore your own family? Feng Sun might seem very silly and careless at times, but he could be very reliable in critical moments. This time, he found the flaw in the second prince's argument and pressed on. Even Feng Wu wanted to clap her hands for him. Nice move. He had practically caught the second prince out in his lie. If the second prince admitted that he had called Feng Wu a murderer earlier, he would be a heartless brother. If he denied that he had said such a thing, then why did he remain silent when Zhuo Qingxian accused Feng Wu of being the murderer? Therefore, no matter what his answer was, it would be the wrong answer. The second prince's face turned livid. He stared at Feng Sun with his cold eyes, as if he wanted to tear him to pieces. Feng Sun wasn't intimidated. Yes, he was the second prince, but he was nowhere near as intimidating as Jun Linyuan was. Therefore, the angrier the second prince became, the brighter Feng Sun's smile was. The second prince took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. It was time he made a choice. It was between his own reputation and Zhuo Qingxian's, so of course he knew which one to choose. Chapter 1834 Untitled. Chapter 1834, Untitled. I never said that I heard that Feng Wu was the murderer. The second prince glared at Feng Sun. Zhuo Qingxian might have heard it, but I didn't, which was why I wasn't convinced. Feng Sun said, I see. There I was, thinking that Feng Wu had been judged guilty, but as it turned out, Your Royal Highness never heard such a thing. The second prince smirked. It was Zhuo Qingxian's turn after that. He wanted the purple sun swordplay so badly that he was willing to give up everything he had. After he got his number, he stood in front of the lattice, pressed his hands together, and muttered something. Feng Sun shouted, Hey, your voice is too low. You need to say it out loud if you want her help. Dugu Yamo rolled her eyes at Feng Sun. Don't make me laugh. Brother Zhuo will never beg for Feng Wu's help. Feng Sun said, You never know. Maybe he's doing it in his head. Hey, I mean it. Praying in your head won't work. Shut up. Zhuo Qingxian threw a dirty look at him. Feng Sun snorted. He then nudged Xian Yi with his elbow. Do you think he'll secretly ask for Xiao Wu's help? Xian Yi shook his head. Not yet. Feng Sun said, You think? It seems to me that he wants the purple sun swordplay very much. Xian Yi was speechless. Of course he did. Everyone here wanted it. Feng Sun said, But when it's my turn, I'll get the swordplay, and it'll be too late for him to pray. Dugu Yamo couldn't stand it anymore. She stared at Feng Sun and said, Young Lord Feng, how can you be so sure? Feng Sun said, Because Xiao Wu owns this place. Dugu Yamo asked, How do you know? Where's your proof? Feng Sun said, I don't have any at the moment. Dugu Yamo said, Then stop daydreaming. Feng Sun said, Daydreaming? Is that what it is? Zhuo Qingxian accused Xiao Wu of killing Zhuo Qingyu when he didn't have any evidence. Why didn't anyone say that he was daydreaming? Dugu Yamo didn't know what to say. She wanted to retort, but couldn't find the words. She wondered since when Feng Sun became so aggressive. Feng Wu was very touched when she saw how hard Feng Sun was trying to clear her name. Thank you, Feng Sun. Since you're so nice to me, I'm going to reward you for it. Feng Wu's original plan was to give the best things to Feng Sun and Xian Yi while leaving some bits and pieces for the others. But since Feng Sun was so adorable, she decided that she would give them everything. Zhuo Qingxian was very lucky, because he got 8 and 7. And the purple sun swordplay was right there, in lattice number 87. However, with Feng Wu behind the shelves, just like Ranmil, Zhuo Qingxian was never going to get the swordplay. With a move of her fingers, Feng Wu changed the position of the swordplay again. When Zhuo Qingxian opened the door, whoosh, 3 poisonous arrows shot out at him. They were so fast that he barely had any time to dodge. Luckily, Zhuo Qingxian was capable enough to jump out of the way in time, but that meant that he hadn't found anything good this time. The second prince looked at Zhuo Qingxian. You really are very unlucky. Zhuo Qingxian went back to his old spot with a livid face. Chapter 1835 Untitled. Chapter 1835 Untitled. Feng Sun jumped around happily. Gosh, why won't you listen to me? I've told you over and over that you have to ask for Xiao Wu's help. But you're all just so stubborn. Fine, you won't say the words, and that's what you got. The crowd was speechless. Look, His Royal Highness only casually said a prayer in passing, and he found an enhancing pill. Although it's nothing worth screaming over, it's better than a water bomb or poisonous arrows, isn't it? The crowd was speechless. They had found Feng Sun's theory utter nonsense, and wouldn't believe him. However, after everything that had happened, they began to waver. After Zhui Qingxian, it was Feng Lu's turn. She actually wanted to ask for Feng Wu's help. But the problem was, after how she insulted and slandered Feng Wu, and how she stressed that she felt irreconcilable hatred for Feng Wu, she couldn't bring herself to openly ask for Feng Wu's help. Therefore, after Feng Lu rolled the dice, she opened the door to the lattice to find nothing inside. Feng Sun sneered at Feng Lu, who was furious but couldn't utter a word. She even began to doubt herself. Did she have no choice but to beg Feng Wu? Feng Yuran and Feng Sang rolled the dice after Feng Lu. Neither were on friendly terms with Feng Wu, so they couldn't bring themselves to openly beg Feng Wu either. Hence, neither found any nice rewards. Dugu Yamo and Dugu Mingxi were next. Dugu Yamo held so many grudges against Feng Wu that she would rather walk out of here empty-handed than ask for Feng Wu's help. Dugu Mingxi held nothing against Feng Wu, but since he was intimately involved with Feng Lu, he could never pray to Feng Wu. Hence, neither of the siblings found anything good either. Their repeated failures made the mood in the hall tense once again. Ha ha ha, it's finally my turn. Feng Sun was relieved to see that none of the people before him had found the Purple Sun swordplay. He hadn't had much hope at first, but after he found the Purple Sun sword, he wanted the swordplay as well. The two would be a perfect match. Xiao Wu, you have to help me. Please let me find the Purple Sun swordplay, please. Pressing his hands together, Feng Sun prayed loudly. The others didn't know what to say. Feng Lu rolled her eyes at Feng Sun and said, Young Lord Feng, please don't make me laugh. Do you really think that Feng Wu owns this place and can decide which reward will go to whom? Feng Sun nodded sincerely. Don't you think so? Feng Lu said, You've lost your mind. The others nodded their heads as well. Feng Sun said, You're all hopelessly stubborn. Feng Lu smirked. If you can find the Purple Sun swordplay, I'll marry you. Feng Sun almost jumped to his feet. Gosh, please don't. I'd rather lose the swordplay. His reaction infuriated Feng Lu. Stomping her foot, she said, You're the last person I want to marry anyway. If you find it, you can have my head. Take it whenever you like. Chapter 1836 Untitled. Chapter 1836 Untitled. Feng Sun said, That's more like it. Feng Lu asked, What if you can't find it? Feng Sun glared at her. Why can't I? That swordplay belongs to me. Feng Lu said, Ha, what if you can't find it? Feng Sun said, If I can't find it, well, I'll give you 100 low-grade spiritual stones then. Take it or leave it. It's not like your head is worth taking. Feng Lu was so angry that she stomped her foot again. Fine. I'll wait for your 100 spiritual stones. Feng Sun rolled his dice. The number was still quite ominous. 4 and 4. Seeing the combination, everyone cracked up. Feng Sun said, Ha ha ha. 44. That's so ominous. Feng Sun, you're doomed. Dugu Yamo said, That's such an unlucky number, probably the most unlucky one so far. Sapphiro said, I'd love to see you find the Purple Sun swordplay with that number. Feng Sun scratched his head. As a matter of fact, he felt uneasy as well. Although he had been saying that Xiao Wu owned this place, and that she was in charge of giving out all the rewards, he knew perfectly well that he was only bluffing. 44. How could such a number lead him to the swordplay? However, Feng Sun said, You're all so short-sighted. So what if the number isn't good? I rolled 74 the last time, and that led me to the Purple Sun sword. I'm sure the swordplay is right there in lattice number 44. Ha ha ha. The others all laughed at him. However, when Feng Sun opened the door, the others all drew in their breaths. The smiles froze on their faces. The quick change in their moods made the corners of their mouths twitch. Through the open door, they saw a booklet inside. However, it's just a booklet. It doesn't have to be the Purple Sun swordplay. The others all tried to persuade themselves. However, when Feng Sun took the booklet out of the lattice and showed them the front cover, they all saw the golden characters on the deep blue cover. It was the Purple Sun swordplay. SSSS. Everyone drew in their breaths. The Purple Sun swordplay. Holy crap! It really is the swordplay. But how is that even possible? How? How? I'm going to lose my mind. Why can Feng Sun find whatever he wants? Does Feng Wu really own this place? Everyone was shocked and infuriated. They had found nothing so far, and couldn't get anything they wanted. On the other hand, Feng Sun had found the Purple Sun sword and the swordplay in a row. This is outrageous. How can this happen? I'm so mad. I'm so jealous. This sucks. Everyone was displeased. Meanwhile, Feng Sun finally recovered from his initial shock. It really is the Purple Sun swordplay. Oh my god. He held the booklet tightly in his hands and couldn't think straight. Did I find it because I prayed for little Feng Wu's help?